So we're at the end of PAX Day 2. Just in case you don't know who I am, I'm Andrew Whipple.
Oh, that's me. I'm Cassidee Moser.
We're tired. We're very tired.
Yes, 4 hours of sleep. It's lovely.
That's just how it's been. But we're sitting here in one of the PAX foyers, many, and this one is not as inhabited as the others.
No.
And we want to go through. We just want to go through a couple of days, just talk about the games we thought were the best, maybe some things we thought were really interesting, and heck, maybe some stuff we're anticipating. I don't know.
I gotta say, my highlight so far, and I feel bad because you haven't done this. We got pins. They're running this penny arcade thing. I think that's what they're going for. Look at this. I know media guys got some too. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, they're just handing them out. I don't know. I like free stuff. It's like just handing out candy to me.
What's your favorite pin?
My favorite pin, I really like the Lift Trousers one. I'm not gonna lie. I think Dead Rock Divide actually had some pretty cool ones. And Dungeon of the Endless had some cool ones as well. I think I some focus on this for the B-roll. But I'm talking too much about pins. Pins are great. Pins, Penny Arcade. What's the first game we got on the list?
Well, the first game that we saw on day one was Shovel Knight. And I suppose I'm a little biased toward it, but I'm looking forward to that game. It is one of my most anticipated of the year. And it sounds silly just because it's an indie game, but man, it plays so smooth and the music is great. I just think there's so much potential behind it. And you get a chance to play the 3DS version.
I did. And that is a game that I will play the hell out of on 3DS. It's perfect. It's a digestible thing. It's quick. It's retro. It's got that really cool SNES sort of look and feel to it. It's tightly controlled. And the guys were super nice, so I can't help it. And I got to support it now.
Yeah, the guys at Yacht Club are always a good time. Sean, Nick, and Aaron. I mean, I can't really say anything else about it. I think it's probably one of the better games that we've seen at the show so far. What do you think?
It's definitely a tight one.
Okay, all right. So yeah, let's go down this list here then. We saw Secret Ponchos right after from Switchblade Monkeys, and I had been talking to you about that before, that multiplayer title.
Yes. So Secret Ponchos I liked. It's a very cool game. It's a very interesting idea. It's kind of one of those, again, I am a single player junkie. I'm biased on this. I don't play a ton of multiplayer games, so I don't know if that's going to be one that's tailored to me, but it's got a really nice layer of polish to it, and it looks like they've really designed it well so that it will appeal to a bunch of different people. That's kind of what I took away from it.
Yeah, I like its unique nature. I mean, there isn't too many. All right, so let me rephrase this. There's a lot of couch co-op games coming out right now. Some that are already out, like Nidhogg, Samurai Gun. I mean, I keep talking about Crawl. You know, that's a good time too. This game, you're going to be able to play it split screen. It's up to like 8 people, I think, is what it was.
Yeah, I think there were 8.
Yeah,
it all spread out on the screen. It was kind of like a fighting game. They have like the little slices of each character and the verses. It was pretty cool.
Right. I mean, there's some personality behind that game. I like how every single character has different speed, has different damage, different health. They all have different moves. It's one of those things you can just drop in and play and have a great time with. And I'm really looking forward to that one too.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okay, all right. So after that, we saw, this one Cassidee was really excited about, and you know what it is already.
So I don't know if I would say excited. This War of Mine, it's made by 11-Bit Studios, and it's not so much that I'm excited as much as I'm intrigued, because it's an empathy game. And I don't know if you can get excited about playing an empathy game, because the point of an empathy game is you're not supposed to feel good playing it. And we talked to the guy that made it, and he is super passionate about it. He's trying to make a statement with it, and it's all about being a survivor of war and how people who are in a war are, it's not just the military that's fighting it, and everybody has to play a part in their own, survival. It's very intense, it's very morbid, it's very dark, very mature, and he's exploring a lot of really cool stuff with this. That's why I'm interested in it. I really want to see how it develops and how it picks up as he goes.
So I got a little bit out of that when we were scheduling appointments, which it makes it interesting, but I didn't know what to expect since there wasn't any true gameplay from there. We weren't allowed to film anything just because he wasn't ready to show it off. And quite frankly, I mean, I don't blame him just because it's imperfect, but it looks nice. It's like think of it like Shadow Complex, where it's a 3D environment, but you're moving like on a 2D plane, kind of. It's a pretty intense game,
yeah.
But at the same time, at the end of the day, it has to be a video game, right?
I think what I found the most interesting is he very nearly shied away from calling it a game every opportunity he got. Like anytime any one of us would bring up game mechanics or systems, he would kind of like, he'd go like, yeah, that's there, but let's talk about this, which tells me that he's got a very, very impassioned mission behind it. So that's kind of what I thought was really interesting, and it's got to be one of the more unique games we've seen on the show.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not taking anything away from it. It's intense, and I can't wait to actually see more of it and get my hands directly on it. But it's like, it still has to play like a game. I'm very interested in seeing what he's going to do to make it even more intense than it already is. I guess you'll have to see it to really understand, but yeah, I agree. I thought it was probably one of the biggest surprises of the show.
Definitely. I'd kind of written it off, but it was very cool, very interesting.
So then we traveled to Amplitude Studios next. We saw Dungeon of the Endless and Endless Legend, lots of endlesses. I haven't really been too deep into the roguelikes out there. There's too many of them, but there's a lot of good ones out there. I mean, I really like the art direction of Dungeon of the Endless. Cassidee had a chance to play Dungeon of the Endless, which is Endless Legend.
Different Endless. Both take place in the same universe.
They do, which is why it's confusing. But hers was a 4X game, which 4X game.
I was all about it. It was really cool. It's it looks like Civ, but it's fantasy, space fantasy sort of. And there's a lot of the same systems, but he has different takes on them. And the menus, believe it or not, totally intuitive. Which PC, you know me, I shy away from it. It's not. I'm terrified of it, but yeah, you don't feel buried in menus, and they're very navigable, which is a great word. And I've been using it way too much today. But
navigable is good, which the showroom floor was not. But Dungeon of the Endless, it's a very unique hybrid of roguelike and tower defense. Like, you pick all these different characters, and you can't move around with them. It's odd.
yeah.
But you have to power all these different rooms, and monsters can show up, and you have to kind of move people back, and if they get to your crystal, you lose. So I guess that's the objective for the enemies. Again, it looks really nice. It's something I would definitely like to see more of for sure. And I kind of like how both these games are intertwined in a way.
Yeah, they both take place in the same universe. I watched you play Dungeon of the Endless, and it looks interesting. Those just aren't really my kind of game, so I didn't really, I wasn't too jazzed by it. But it's not that it was bad. It's just that it's not really my thing. So
I got to play as a girl that's an anagram for Samus Aran, so I was pretty happy. I was good. All right, so moving on, we got to try out Dungeon Defenders 2.
Yes, we did.
All right, so the next game, so the first Dungeon Defenders, you played it, right?
Yes, again, multiplayer. It was fine. I didn't hate it, didn't love it. It was just sort of like, yeah, this is a game, and I'm playing it. And there's tower defense elements to it.
I love the cooperative type tower defense games. Well, Dungeon Defenders had a lot of stuff going on with it. For somebody who really likes to get deep into the menus and RPG stuff, I think that they would really like it, and they did, which is why they're making a second one. Dungeon Defenders 2 is simplified, but the problem that I think that we had, like on the showroom floor, there wasn't a lot of time for us to really look in depth into the game, and we played the hardest map, and we got our ass kicked.
I also had League of Legends commentary kind of like blasting into my head because that booth was right behind us. So half the time I'm playing the demo, I was trying to listen in on this. Not by my own choice, but yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't great. It was, it looks really cool and it plays really well. But again, it's just, I don't know if it's really my thing. I know a lot of people that were really big into Dungeon Defenders, though, and I think it will be right up their alley because it does seem like they've made some really interesting choices to it.
Yeah, they made sure that all the traps had synergy with each of the other classes, so you really wanted to work together to come up with some unique combinations. Again, we got our ass kicked, like, hard, and we didn't have time to really sit there and mess with it. So if we get some hands-on time with it again at some other point, I'm sure we'll have some other commentary. But yeah, that was a game.
Definitely. It was a game-ass game.
So this was cool, too. We got to follow up on an interview. We saw Prodigy.
We did see Prodigy. I really liked Prodigy.
Prodigy's on Kickstarter.
Yes, it is. Prodigy, the worst explanation for it is adult Skyrim, and they don't like it when you say that. But it's a figure-based game. It's kind of like a Toys to Life sort of thing where you take these really beautiful and elaborate sculptures and you place them on their own custom board. And the second you do that, they appear in-game, and you're kind of on your own little chessboard battlefield kind of thing, and you can move your character to align with your enemy, and you can attack them. You do it using all these cards. Shut up.
No, it's just it's one of
language, you PC nerd.
It's one of those things where it wasn't to what you were saying. People don't care, I feel, about like the Skylanders and whatever formula, but Prodigy was interesting enough that Cassidee and I played against each other, to which she cheated because they gave her 3 pieces and I had 2.
That's all I got to say that.
Yeah, whatever. But I just like the intricacy behind the models, and they were really super passionate about it. They said that there's going to be a single player, like a whole campaign, story elements. So you're going to fight all these different types of monsters, because all you have to do is own the pieces. They level up, there's gear, there's loot. There's a lot. I think that this has some potential to actually do really well.
Well, I thought what was cool about it was, like, we sat down, well, we didn't sit, we stood, but we started playing it, and we placed everything on the board, and he's like, all right, now you're going to select attack, and I'm like, the mouse, I just got to click on attack, right, and there's no mouse, there's nothing, no controllers, nothing. You use just cards that say, like, attack and will and power and defend and all that, and you place it on there, and I don't know what kind of magic they use to make these things read it, but that's what selects what your character does, and there's a lot of depth to it. Like, it's super easy to get into and figure out. Like, the systems are not deep, they're not crazy hardcore, but there's a lot you can do with it strategically, which is, I think, why I liked it.
Yeah, I had a good time with it. I can't wait to see more. Next, we saw Clay.
Yes, we did.
Clay Entertainment. Clay Entertainment, they're full of some pretty cool dudes, some pretty passionate guys. So what did you think of Invisible Ink?
Invisible Ink is rad. It is. I'm pulling out the 90s words for this one. It's XCOM-ish. They use that sort of strategic, moving around from point to point, going to cover, kind of planning, mapping your people around, giving them all special abilities. But it's a spy game, so it's stealth involved with it as well, and it's really cool. I was terrible at it. These games take me a little while to figure out, because again, I'm learning. I'm getting better at this PC thing. But it's really cool, and it's, you know, if you're into that kind of thing, it's right up your alley. So I really dug it. And the guys there are super cool too. Got to give them a shout out.
Yeah, they're a bit crazy. We also saw, which is never a bad thing, we also saw Don't Starve, the Reign of the Giants, which I know that's in early access right now. It's in early access for DLC, I'd like to mind you. Like, we're going crazy with the early access stuff.
Yeah, I've never seen that. Yeah, it was cool though.
There's giants. Apparently, they're not showing the giants. At least they never showed them to us. But he said what we can say is that the summer giant can catch on fire. Like, he's a giant dragon butterfly, right?
Yeah, he made a point of it. This guy's setting everything on fire. He's pyro.
Yeah, he was also. I just want to let you know that he was maniacally just laughing at the idea of wildfires just spreading over your camp, and he thought that was the greatest thing ever.
Oh no, we called him evil on several occasions.
Okay.
He laughed, he grinned, he was loving it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So those guys, a bit evil. Looking forward to seeing more from Invisible Ink for sure. And I mean, Reign of the Giants. If you like Don't Starve, why would you hate this?
You know what else I really dig? Clay has, you know, between Mark of the Ninja and Shank and Invisible Ink and Don't Starve, they have the coolest visual design, and it's always different. You know, they mix it up for each one, and it was totally on display again. Invisible Ink was its own kind of Cartoon Network-y look to it, and then Don't Starve looks like a Tim Burton sketch. It's just really, really cool.
Well, Shank 2 was the last sequel that they actually did. I had asked Matt, I believe was his name, the sound guy. Are they going to do Mark of the Ninja 2? And he's like, oh, well, you know, we kind of want to experiment and do some new things. And you know what? I got to give him props for that, because it's probably easy just to crank out a sequel for something like that. Not easy, but it's more work to be creative and to come up with something unique.
Yeah, well, he said he wasn't saying it wasn't happening, but he also was. Yeah, he was very cagey about it.
Make it happen. All right. So the next one is, all right. So I think this is also one of the surprises of the show. How did you feel about Xaviant's Lichdom Battle Mage?
I thought it was pretty cool. I'm going to let you talk about it because you couldn't stop talking about it yesterday.
Could not stop talking about it yesterday. All right, so when I play, let me ask you first. You've played the Elder Scrolls games, right? Like Skyrim?
Yes, I have.
Have you used mods?
No. I'm one of those dirty console gamers, remember?
Dirty console gamer. That's right. Okay, I just wanted to emphasize that point again. So, as soon as I saw that game, I just thought, all right, Skyrim with mods. I joked about that with a couple of friends too. But man, I have never seen a game that just makes you feel like this badass mage. There's no mana in this game at all. You can just throw ice and fireballs and corruption insect missile things all over the place. And you know what makes it feel great? Just the weight behind like the explosions, the impact of the actual magic hitting somebody, like the skeletons. I mean, even the monster design was fantastic. They've got a loot system in there too, so you can craft your own magic. There's 8 or 9 schools of different stuff. There's like kinesis magic. The guy said maybe, like, wink, 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 that if you combine like kinesis with fire or something, you can make just totally unique spells that alter like the environments that they go in. I don't know, like that game. I've just never. I cannot believe that nobody has done this yet. The last game to do it was Dark Messiah of Might and Magic, first person wise, and it was more melee than magic. So, I mean, I can't wait for it. What did you think, though?
Well, that's kind of what I took away from it. And I told him yesterday when we were talking to him, anytime you play a first-person action game kind of like that, there's always sort of a feeling of disconnection from the action. You don't get that tangible sort of tactile response. Like in Elder Scrolls, you swing a sword and it's just...
Stilted response. Just
yeah, you hear your sword digging into stuff, but you don't get a feel for it. And with this game, I mean, it was a hands-off demo, but you could still feel like a weight to it. Like anytime the hand animations were really intricate and they were really well done, and anytime he did stuff, like it almost kind of reminded me of BioShock when you're walking around with like when you got one of your plasmids.
Yeah.
When you're armed up on those. Yeah, like the hand's kind of like moving the whole time, and it's it's firing and it's doing all this awesome stuff. It was a cool game. It's I'm definitely probably going to check that one out.
And you're a battle mage too. He made an emphasis on that. He wants you in like the fray. Like he was shoulder charging into dudes. By the way, when you evade in that game, come on, that's badass. It slows down time, and he just warps over into the corner, and I want to play it.
Yeah, it was very cool. Just the way that he moved, the traversal of it was really clever. The way that he cast spells, and you can combine them too. You might want to mention that. Firebugs.
Yeah. So with the loot system, you can synthesize like new spells, and you can quite literally change the way that spells and such behave. Yeah, there's a million things that we could talk about with that game. So we'll move on, because Lichen Battle Mage, one of the surprises of the show for sure. So we also had the opportunity to talk to Supergiant Games about Transistor. Now, I had a chance to play this last year. I've seen Transistor quite a bit. Cassidee actually got a hands-on demo this year.
That was pretty cool. They took me in like a little back room of the booth. I've never had that before. This whole press thing was pretty sweet. You get the media, you get the access. Yeah, and Transistor is rad. Transistor is really cool. It's a beautiful game. What I did not know about it was that the combat is part active, part like turn-based. It's really cool. Yeah, you can line up shots. It kind of reminded me of VATS in a weird way, where you can sort of like, stop time. You go and you plan out your moves, and then when you hit the R2, I think, it takes you back, it rewinds you, and then it goes all the moves that you mapped out in a succession, and it's really cool. The voiceover was really interesting. The world is beautiful. The art is beautiful naturally. This guys that did Bastion. And Greg DeSabin's a really cool guy as well. Got to talk to him. And it's a cool game. Like, I'm really intrigued by that one.
I think the story concept behind it's kind of neat. You have a female protagonist, so I know that a lot of people, they talk about that. They like strong female leads. It looks like you find the Transistor, which is the sword that you're touting around, and yeah, the narrator, Rux from Bastion, he's back too. I know that's a little bit weird for some people, because I guess both those worlds have nothing to do with each other.
He sounded different this time too.
A little bit, but it's pretty similar, I thought.
Didn't he have like some kind of like accent kind of more in Bastion, it felt like?
Not really. I mean, that guy has a very distinctive voice. So you could bring it up immediately. But either way, like, yeah, it's an action hybrid, like turn-based strategy type game. I think the concept behind it's fascinating, and I really can't wait to get my hands on it for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
After that, we had some time with the Undead Labs, State of Decay, which is always a good time with them.
So we saw Lifeline, which is the upcoming DLC that they have, where you get to play in the military. And State of Decay, I mean, I like that game already to begin with, but this makes me want to jump back into it again. The guys told me, they were very candid about it, they're like, we want you to feel like a badass. We're not limiting any ammo, we just want you to get out there and just run around. You can do a move where you jump up, and it's like a wrestling kick. You like jump up and like dive with both feet and take out a zombie, and it was awesome. They're also introducing like a bunch of new mechanics to it too. Like you can store things in a vehicle this time, so you don't necessarily have to forage and go around scavenging everything. And it was really cool. And they were really cool as well.
I think that's what people kind of wanted from State of Decay, though. They wanted to just be able to. It's something different. Instead of surviving, you still have to survive, but you want to go out and you want to be a badass. You want to kill as many zombies as you can just to see what happens. I think that they're heading in the right direction for that. Also, so this is the second DLC. I know Eric and I had shown off a breakdown before. This is their first story expansion.
They didn't go into a whole lot of that. They said that it's a story expansion, but I don't remember hearing a ton about the actual story. Like they introduced a couple of the characters, but I'd be interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so another person that we saw that I thought was a really cool guy, super talented, was Mo Brutes, Games by Mo, doing Annie. If you've ever seen that, what'd you think of Annie?
Annie's neat. Annie is cute. Annie, it's a very charming game. It's a very difficult game. I died many times. It's a retro platformer. I mean, when we walked in there, he hands you a Super Nintendo controller to play it, and he had a box set up. It was Super Motendo, but yeah, he had his own little box set up so it looks like a Super Nintendo game, and it feels like one, and it's a lot of fun. Like I thought it was a really cute one, and a lot of respect for that guy. One-man team making that. There's a lot going on with that. So.
Yeah, he's a family man. I mean, that dude, Mo, if you're watching this, you're crazy. It's a beautiful looking game. I like the idea of having a ship as sort of act as the overworld of sorts, and the enemies are a bit bigger. They'll climb on the ceilings. They'll do some ridiculous stuff, and if you get out of your ship, those enemies, they don't downscale. Like, you'll just die in one hit. So that game has some difficulty to it.
Yeah, it's tough. I died many times, but it was my own fault, which is the right kind of challenge. Don't be cheating me. It was good.
So to be on the lookout for Annie, he's still got quite a bit to do. I think he said he was at like 50% or so. All right, and then creeping into the second day here, we started off with Discord. Did a little bit of Chasm action. Now I've been high on Chasm for a while. I've been talking to Cassidee about that. And if you're kind of sick of the whole Metroidvania sweep that's just been taking over Steam and such, well, I think that you can rest easy knowing that this game is unique enough to kind of grip you.
Chasm I liked. I think my one biggest complaint with Chasm is that the way it handles, and this is probably a design choice, and that's fine, it feels very heavy. When you want to jump, you have to hold the jump. It's kind of like Luigi. And there's a lot of very precise platforming that you have to do in some of those spots, and it can kind of make it a little bit tough. You know, and again, that might be a design choice, and that's fine, but I didn't feel like it was quite as responsive as I would have wanted it to be. That said, it was a beautiful game, and the music is actually really cool. The music stuck out to me more than anything else when I was playing it. Which is it's very basic. It's a lot of guitars. It's very simple. It's very serene, but it works really well with that world.
Yeah, I've been giving James a hard time too because I wanna see what the boss fights are like in that game. It's really fun to kill the enemies. Like when you do kill them, they just explode into pixels. Like it is really well done. High res pixels, if that makes sense. I believe it's like a soft jump. So the longer you hold it down, the higher that you go. So if you just tap it, you don't really jump that high. That's like a Mega Man thing. And I think that you get used to it just after a while.
Yes, I could see that. I just felt like I don't know, for me, I wished it would have been just a little bit more responsive. But the game is beautiful. I mean, don't take that like it's a bad game, because it's not. It's absolutely a great game. That was just my only complaint with it, was there was some platforming that was required a little more precision than I felt like the game was willing to give me. So that was my only issue with it, I think.
I'd really like you to see the procedural generation from the game as well, because whenever you go into a new area, it's usually never the same. So my experience with that game would be very different than yours at how to get to this item. It's like, oh yeah, did you fight the giant raccoon monster with the teeth on his head?
Yeah.
And you'd go, no.
Yeah, and that is cool, and I'd be interested to see what they do with it, because it does kind of change everything up, and like we were talking to them, you can't memorize how to run it, so if you mess up, you have to kind of pay attention to the mechanics themselves. You can't memorize the map like you would in a Mega Man.
People will not be speedrunning that game. Alright, so then we took, I know there's a lot to say about this one, so we had an extensive hands-on demo for Wolfenstein today, The New Order. So that's the new Wolfenstein game. You know, why don't you start on this one?
I'm trigger happy. I love shooters. I really do. I play them. I know. I love playing them. I play them on the PC, believe it or not. I play them on the console. And Wolfenstein is a joy to play. It feels so good. It's so tight, and everything moves really well. The shooting, it feels so good, and the sound design is unbelievably good. Very crisp, and it sounds like a gun. It has a really nice resonant echo to it. It has a punch to every shot.
Best intro of a story, or of a shooting story of all time? You don't think so? I mean, they threw you right in there, late title card. I mean, man, you were into this. Like, you were all over the place. You're in a plane.
It's a military shooter. I don't know. I have yet to see a military shooter that really has an awesome intro. That really wows me.
Kind of does what you want, though. You want to shoot things, and
yes.
They've got the story elements in there. And you're right, it does feel pretty good. We played it on the PlayStation 4, by the way. I don't know, the story, it's the same type of like fanatical not Neo, but fictional zombie, I'm sorry, Nazis. I'm thinking of just Nazis in general.
There's zombie-ish things in there. Yeah.
Whatever. All that stuff looks strange, but that's kind of the premise of it. Like, the Nazis win the war, and you're cooped up for like 14 years, I think.
Yes. Yeah, it was something like that. It's an alt history game, and that's cool. That game is so bro. It is a bro game, and I'm tired of bro games. I really am.
What makes it a bro game?
He's a big, shaved white dude who's a Marine.
He's got emotions, Cassidee.
Okay, you know what bothered me about this game? Okay.
Emotions?
Yes, I'm a robot. No, he is kept in an asylum for 14 years. Okay, he goes in there big, jacked up. Comes out big, jacked up. That doesn't happen, because he supposedly sat in a wheelchair for 14 years. And there's a point when he has to get up to take out a bunch of Nazis. And he's like reaching for a knife, and you hear him in his head like, oh, my fingers feel numb. And then you get up and you're just running around on a rampage. And it's like, it's a very tonally inconsistent game, is what bothered me.
Video games.
Yeah, but you could have good video games. That's the thing.
I agree with you in the sense that there is some inconsistency. I don't like how the level design, like the layouts, there's some tough things that they try to get you to understand, which is, it's a good tutorial, but the problem is you really don't know where to go, and after like 3 minutes or so, a light will just show and go like, oh yeah, you gotta go over here and do this cool thing.
I didn't even get a light. Like, the level design is very poor in that game. And it's not even the level design, it's the direction of it.
Easy to get lost.
Yeah, I got lost on multiple occasions. And it got to a point where I had to have, like, the creator, or the producer at one point, well, it's a couple points, come up to me and show me how to get out of something. And it's because it did a very poor job of explaining what it wanted me to do. There was one point where on the radio, Sergeant whatever comes in and goes, yo, we need you to meet us at the castle. And I'm like, I didn't know we were in a castle. I was running around in trenches. So I'm looking around for a castle, and there's no castle. And so I sat and went back and forth for like 10 minutes. I'm like, do I backtrack in this game? I haven't backtracked yet, so it's like, it's not intuitive at all. That was my biggest problem with it. It's just like a big circle. Like, I just kept looping back over things. I'm like, this is weird. It doesn't feel right. So Wolfenstein, I mean, if I had to rate it out of 10, it'd be a 6 because it feels so good to play, and it's hyper violent in kind of a fun way, but in other ways, kind of a dark, weird way. It's very pulpy, and other than that, it's so run of the mill. It's military bro shooter stuff, and I'm kind of done with shaved Marines, and
it's visceral, and I think that's just how it goes. I agree. I think it is. There's some stuff to do with it. All right, moving on. All right, so one of my more favorite games that we got to see, I know that you're not too big into the MMO scene, but WildStar.
You get this section, you can talk all about it.
Stop that.
Okay, now for what it's worth, it looks really cool. It looks really cool, and WildStar has a lot of interesting stuff going for it. I just don't play MMOs. It's just not my thing. So when we were sitting in these demos, I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing, WildStar, and I appreciate it. It's just not my thing.
You just won't try it at all.
I just don't have time. Like that's a game that you commit to, and I don't do that. I just can't. My time will not permit it.
MMOs it's a tough thing. You're right. You have to really invest some time in there. So, yeah, they showed us a couple of things we can't exactly talk about right now while we're recording this podcast. But there's some PvP elements that we got to see, which are they were really cool, even from someone who doesn't play any MMOs, right?
They were impressive, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that game's got some customization, let's just say that. And we got a chance to talk with Jeremy Gaffney, so the president of Carbon Studios. He always has some outlandish things to say, so you should definitely check out the interview for that we had. I'm just really looking forward to something that tries to shake up the formula a little bit different. And you know what I really liked about it?
What?
He never said we're trying to beat World of Warcraft.
No, that guy's just trying to make a cool game. He's just trying to make a cool product. He's super passionate about it. He was awesome. He
just wants to make a good game, and I think that's what really counts. So that studio, I'm really looking forward to it. So we'll definitely share some stuff with you guys once we get in there. All right, and then oh boy, so we got to go back to Bethesda and see The Evil Within.
Yes, we did.
Next game. So we were joking around about this. They shouldn't have showed that game. Like, it was not ready to be shown.
I mean,
you got atmosphere. You got atmosphere from that, and it's creepy. Like, I think that there's some serious potential behind it, but man, it was not ready. The guy that was doing the run through had like several glitches happen. He had to skip to the second half of the game.
He clutched his head at one point. It was like, oh. Evil Within, I'm not a horror game person. This sounds like I play no games at all. I really do, I promise. I'm just a baby. And it was very, very Resident Evil 4 to me, is kind of what I got from it. It's a lot of that atmosphere. There were like zombie-ish enemies. That was another thing that kind of bugged me. It just dropped us in there and didn't give us any context as to what was happening or what was going on or what was here. And it was, just kind of pick up as you go. There were a lot of AI issues. There was one point when like a zombie demon guy was like shooting at him, and he ran past him, and the zombie demon guy was still shooting at where he was beforehand.
Yeah, it's all scripted.
Yeah, it was strange, some of it, but I mean, it had some interesting ideas. Like you said, the atmosphere of it was pretty cool. It was rough.
Interesting ideas, the game, right?
Yes, I think so.
All right, so after that, we decided to visit Bootsnake Studios. So that was pretty cool. You got some nice hands-on time with Dead Rock Divide.
I did. Yeah, Dead Rock Divide is cool. I'm playing all these strategy games this time around. It's, again, another one kind of like XCOM, but this one has different elements to it. It's a little more fantasy-ish. They add the magic in there. He's got all sorts of cool little moves. It kind of reminded me of Biotics from Mass Effect. So there was one move where he showed us you can elevate a character when they're out of cover, and they stay there for a turn so that one of your other characters can attack that enemy.
Space magic.
Yes, space magic. Those were two words that they used a lot.
Well, that's why it's funny. Like there's humor in that game. It's serious, but then it's not at the same time. I know that I appreciated it. There was some ridiculous names. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, they had a very lighthearted tone to it. It was nice. It was nice to see because there's a lot of grit. There's a lot of people that are real serious about their stuff. So it was nice to see someone that was just like, we're gonna have fun with this. It's kind of goofy. Have fun.
Well, it was pretty good. I don't remember. The names were just so outlandish. It was ridiculous. So we then took off and went to Hyper Light Drifter by Heart Machine. We had a pretty cool interview with Bo and Teddy. Those guys are goofballs. there's a lot of stuff that's still under wraps about that game, but they were able to just talk about some of the development aspects. Yeah, that booth was ridiculously busy.
Yeah, I don't know much about Hyper Light Drifter. We didn't get to play it. We weren't there long enough, and you got in, you got the interview, and got out. It looks a lot like Sword and Sorcery. Just the look of it was really cool, and from what it looks like, it's kind of like it's a combat-heavy game. So there's a lot of brawling kind of elements.
Yeah, it's an adventure game.
Yeah, it was interesting. I would be curious to learn more about it because again, they weren't able to go into much because it's still pretty early on.
Yeah, they wouldn't talk about the story at all. I was trying to push for a little bit of just some narrative, but they weren't ready to really talk about it. They said it's still super early. Like, they probably haven't even done completed a quarter of the game yet. But it looks great. I really like the artwork on it. If I had to put all that stuff in a duel, like in a pot together, be like, all right, what pixel art looks the best? Like, what would you say? Like, I think there's Hyper Light Drifter, Chasm, Dungeon of the Endless. I'd say those are probably the three that are in there, right?
You know what, I would actually, and this is going to sound weird, I would actually say Dungeon of the Endless, because they have a pixel design to it, but they add flares to it that are not retro. Like, there was one point when your ship crashes, and there's steam rising off of it, and the steam warps the image around it, and it was really cool. It was a cool effect. I liked the color of that game. Like, it was a really unique looking game.
Yeah, I think that I'd probably agree with you. I do like the design aspects of Chasm, the way that it looks. I'd probably say I was just wowed by that. Yeah, so maybe they cheat and they win by that way by not using like straight up pixels, but whatever. All right, so the last game that we saw today was, I'd say this is also one of the biggest surprises of the show, right?
Yes, definitely.
Tetropolis. Yeah, by the studio called Next Gen Pants. And Bob, you're a crazy dude, man. Crazy. But we all loved it. We thought it was a joke.
Yeah, this was a weird appointment because all of our appointments have just been going to someone's booth and talking to them, finding them, and then doing the interview. But this guy, first off, he's in the indie mini booth, so he only gets like one day to show off his game on the floor. So he said, meet me in front of the WildStar booth, and I will take you to a location and show you my game. So it was, like, when you told us that, I'm like, okay, dealing drugs in the back of PAX, apparently. But yeah, Tetropolis is really cool. It's super cool. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff going on.
You're a Tetris block in a Metroidvania game, and that doesn't sound interesting at all, right?
Well, it sounds unique. It sounds very ambitious and weird in a way. Like, what are you gonna do with that?
Yeah, but who would pay for that? They just straight up. But if you took a screenshot of a Tetris block and wanted it to be in like a Metroid game or a Castlevania game, who would do that?
Yeah, it's different. And it wasn't what I was expecting it to be at all. The second he booted it up, it was a whole new thing.
It's funny because it's not what you expect it to be, but at the same time, it is what you expect it to be because it blends all the elements of Castlevania together. You can transform like Alucard and Symphony of the Night into the Mist or the dog just by pressing a button. You turn into the line block, and you gain special abilities like you can spring jump off walls to reach higher ledges or do a power slide underneath some stuff. Like, what did you think of that?
It was cool. It was really cool, and he is in love with what he's doing, which that kind of passion you can tell bleeds over into the game. Like, we sat and talked to him for a solid 30 minutes about the mechanics and his design philosophies and everything, and it was awesome. He was totally happy to just gush about all of it, which was really, really cool.
And you can flip the map, just like Tetris, to try and reach secret places and such, which I think is kind of cool. He was talking to us a little bit about his ideas, which we won't spoil here for boss fights and whatnot. But man, I have to say that is probably, with Lichdom Battle Mage, that's probably my biggest surprise of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that.
All right, so that's day 1 and 2. We just figured we'd sit down here and just go through all of it. We'll have another one for Sunday. Thanks for watching.